Radcast News. Hey guys, Ryan Alford, your host of the Radcast.
You're listening to the Radcast.
If it's radical, we cover it. Here is Ryan and Riley.
Here's your host, Ryan Alford.
Hey guys, welcome to the latest episode of the Radical Company podcast, joined by Robbie Fitzwater. Robbie, good to have you today.
It's good to be back.
I know.
It's been fun getting into a rhythm of these.
I know. I love it. And so we're going to break down a few different topics today. We're in a time period as far as marketers go that's, feels relevant to talk about a little bit. The Super Bowl was just a few days ago. I think we'd be remiss to not mention at least some of our favorites and takeaways from the event.
Turn our backs and ignore it. But I got to call out the best takeaway from the event, though, as somebody from Kansas City. It was great. Everything about the Super Bowl was fantastic this year.
I wouldn't call it a curse, but the wait is over. It's been, 50 years?
50 years and lots of heartbreak. I was wearing a jersey that I've had since I think I was like 7, watching this game in a youth extra large jersey that had been covered in sad tears, and suddenly it was covered in
Did that make it a medium, or was it?
It was. If I raised my hands, it went to my nipples. It was great, but it was normally covered in sad tears in the playoffs. But this year it was covered in happy tears, so it was
nice.
It was a good thing.
Congratulations on the victory. It was a good game though.
It was a great game, and in classic Chiefs fashion, they made you sweat. Like every game of the playoffs, we were down 10 points or more, and then suddenly this glorious comeback. And
21 points in the fourth quarter, wasn't it?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
And teams seemed to really click. Things seemed to work well together. And then suddenly, I think, Kansas City probably blew up that night. So there's a lot of pent up emotion.
Is it like West Virginia does when they win? Was it couches on fire?
Just couches on fire. It's just like people jamming to Friends in Low Places and having a good time. It's not quite couches on fire, but there may have been one or two couches. I mean, it's the Midwest. You gotta do what you gotta do.
I love it. So we'll do a little lightning round as far as the ads go, which is a marketing event, probably the largest universal ad event as far as mainstream public goes in evaluating our industry.
I mean, how many millions of dollars do you put into an ad that goes into the Super Bowl? The ad buy is just astronomical, and plus the creative and the distribution around it on the front end and the back end too. Yeah. You got to really be ready to go if you can afford that.
And that's really what I look at now is the integration of the campaign. You can't convince me. I know it's reach and frequency. I've been preaching brand lately and the importance of that, and that's over time. And so, but now I'm going to talk out the other side of my mouth like us marketers like to do. And if you don't have an integrated campaign, that $5.6 million for 30 seconds is not wasted. Most certainly the reach alone there's no other opportunity like it. But, the integration across elements, either peppering it at the front end with like what Planters did with Mr. Peanut dying and then coming back to life, and then kind of all the segues. If you leverage it, you got to have a halo. You got to have a wall of sound, I think, beyond just the spot, which becomes the crescendo of the whole event.
Yeah, and you're almost leading up to that big unveil at that point too. It's like you tease it out as much as you can, and then you want it to either continue or ideally be able to drive it to another place and play ping pong with your other channels. Yeah. And it's kind of cool to see some of the different brands do that in different ways this year too. One of the biggest things that stood out to me probably was the P&G side of things, where they brought all of the major brands, a few of the major brands under their big brand umbrella together under one individual ad, which was kind of different and interesting, but it seemed like there was a lot of kind of co-opetition within those larger brand umbrellas. And seeing them kind of put Mr. Clean, the Bounty Man, the Charmin, the Charmin Bears all together was kind of funny to see. And it seemed like there was that across a few other ads this year too.
Yeah, definitely noticed some co-branding across things. And I think we talked a little bit pre-segment about our favorites. I'm going to ask yours. I told you mine at the beginning, and we'll break it down for the audience. But it was the most. I may be a sucker for emotion. I was sitting there with my wife and I were watching it, and my kids were somewhat paying attention. And, maybe the emotional side. And no matter how you feel about technology, but I feel like it covered a lot of bases for me. There's a lot of bad talk, bad thoughts, bad feelings for technology, when in fact it does solve a lot of problems and does offer a lot of good in that. And I thought Google really hit a home run with the memory spot and the Google Assistant. And the older man, setting the reminders for his what would be a soon deceased wife, and ways to remember her. And I just, my wife and I are sitting there, you're in that moment, and I'm like, number one, the production costs were next to nothing, and I'm sure they spent something with their large ad agency charged them 100 times too much. But showing the Google line. And then showing slideshows, there was, a great voiceover. The production value was super low, memorable though, emotional. Some people argued, well, you're bringing, it wasn't the raunchy humor of everything else. But I will say, the next day, it was still the spot that stuck with me the most.
I mean, it was, they've done a good job. Those are powerful. Like, there's not a lot of, it's like, it has to be so well done. It was so well done and so powerful that you can fit it inside this small box. It's not like a monkey jumping out of a plane, spelling out, like skywriting something in the air. It's not like shock and awe, but it was really like heart-wrenching emotionally. It was really, I remember that was one of my favorites too. And
I think it ranked number 3. There was the unofficial Super Bowl rankings, but it was like number 3. I did like several of the spots. Some of them sometimes they have a good concept, and I know it's maybe they go with a 60 or something, and I feel like it like kills it. It's like I'm like waiting for the punchline or like whatever, like kind of wanting it to
a little bit too long,
a little bit too far. But I thought Groundhog Day with Bill Murray in the Jeep.
I mean, that's
great, classic, well produced, well thought out,
and
clever.
If I feel like that speaks to so many different audiences too. Groundhog Day is kind of a movie that does kind of cross a lot of different age groups.
Yeah.
And Bill Murray, there's not a person alive that doesn't just love Bill Murray.
Exactly.
Nobody's gonna walk down the street like, I hate that Bill Murray guy. I can't stand him.
Exactly.
Like, it's Bill Murray. So it was pretty good.
Even if you don't have not seen the movie, something about Bill Murray's demeanor and personality, it's almost kind of like classic Chevy Chase, maybe not current form Chevy Chase, but it just makes you smile a little bit. But seeing him like getting in if you had never even seen the movie, I think there was a little bit of humor just seeing him repeat those things. So you kind of got the concept either way, but obviously the tie-in and the non-conformity message that they're trying to say with the newest vehicle, Commandos. Is it the truck?
Like Gen Xers were losing their minds across the country.
It's the ugliest car ever.
It's not attractive. It's not attractive. But I mean, it worked for them, and like it was good on them, like taking a little bit of a rugged brand and having some fun with it, because get to show off what it like. You talk about the features and benefits in some ways while still having fun with it and kind of showing the emotional side of it.
And so I always ask myself, having worked with some of the largest brands in the world, been in New York, done the big ad game, I ask myself now, if a client was consulting with me, would I recommend them if they had the budget to run on the Super Bowl? And I'm evenly like split down the middle. Like I firmly know it is still the media event and the attention that people pay to the commercials versus what my wife and I do when we're watching TV, which is in our phone and our head. Attention's gone. And I'm not saying TV advertising is dead. I'm not going to go that far. But attention on TV advertising is way less than it used to be.
I mean, television advertising, they're trying to reach somebody through traditional means doesn't really exist anymore. Like television advertising, when do you watch live TV?
Never.
It's sports.
News is about the only time.
And
news or sports.
And like we don't have cable, and that we've never thought twice about it. But
Yeah.
it's like live sports are like kind of the last bastion of a lot of those ad dollars that used to be spent up on irrelevant ad buys.
Yeah.
But even if you do have it now, you're taking out your phone as soon as the commercials come on, or you're switching to another channel if you even have cable, which more and more people don't. But the Super Bowl, like,
You're attentive.
they're
You're paying attention.
They're an event.
Yeah,
and
the
like,
commercials are.
Like my wife was like, could not care less about the Super Bowl, but she would sit down for the commercials. She was doing other things. She was like, hey, I want to watch the commercials.
And it's the one
really
time
fast.
of the year that happens. So you can't ignore that, and you can't ignore the 40 million people that are watching, or in the U.S. or whatever it is, and hundreds worldwide if you have a worldwide product. And I don't know how the syndication goes and all that, but nonetheless, you can't the media strategic understanding of reach side of me and brand side of me goes, you have to take advantage if you have the budget. But then the other side, and I am not the guy that's on LinkedIn going, you could have done 4,324 mobile billboards. Yeah, okay. I'm not that guy either. But there is something to be said for the impact that could be made for that budget. Ryan Reynolds giving away self-service, bundles for his new company. Other ways to make a splash with that same amount. That's a lot of money. A lot of goodwill
money.
could be done that could be leveraged into something else, but not 3,423 urinal ads.
It's going to flash across
I am not that guy.
Every urinal in the country for years.
But
Every
so it's I don't know, where do you
sports
fall on that pendulum? If Toyota comes to you and Robbie, hey Robbie, should we run Super Bowl this year or not? $6 million for one spot.
It's eyeballs at scale.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Like, eyeballs and attention are really tough. So can the brand put themselves in a position that they're going to captivate and move an audience? So you're going to have a completely lay audience that doesn't know your brand at all. And either you need to position yourself where you really make an impact, but you can't be bland. You can't do something for everybody. I think I saw it a little bit in some of the ads where groups were taking more of a positioning stance and really kind of focusing on what they were, like who they were. Like you saw Amazon try and be a really progressive company. They had Ellen DeGeneres talking about all of the in an ad that like joked about fake news through time and history. But you see those groups kind of taking a little bit more of a narrow focus and, hey, this isn't for everybody, but for the people it is for, it's gonna knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
And I almost think if you could do it in a way that's not spray and pray, where everyone in the country is going to get something kind of average, but if you can get something that isn't for 90% of the people, but is for 10% of the people, then I think that in some ways it does work, because I mean 10% of like 100 million is still 10 million people.
Yeah,
and it's hard to
beat the reach and the attention.
And if you have those deep pockets, you can do that kind of work, but you may have to be a little bit more lean on the way you spend your other ad budget during the year, and maybe not paying for TV during the rest of the year too.
Yeah, I come down like when I hold the proverbial fake BB gun to the head of where I would go. If you're a new brand that has good investment and you're launching something brand new and it's a mass market product, hard to beat the attention and reach that you get with Super Bowl. I think check the yes. If you're an existing brand launching an all new feature, benefit, product, check the box yes. If it's just a pure wide mass play and not more targeted leverage like you just described, I think I fall in we can probably make a bigger, better splash somehow else by the time you add all the costs, both the media cost, the agency cost, and the creative cost, you're probably talking $10 million.
Yeah, at least $10 million. At least
yeah,
10
so
million. And
I think I can do a lot of damage with $10 million outside of that. If it's not product launch, new brand, like there's a couple of very specific scenarios where I think it makes a lot of sense. But, the Doritos fighting, I don't know.
So where I think it'll get interesting is I think when larger brands start to pull out of it. I think when they see, hey, we're not seeing the same impact, when Doritos pulls from it or when Budweiser pulls from it, I think that's when we'll see some different some people really questioning, is it worth it or not? Because I think the shoe hasn't necessarily dropped on like, hey, we're pulling out of this completely. And if it hasn't, I missed it. Yeah, good bad on me. But haven't seen that kind of major exodus from that Super Bowl ads, that kind of mentality of, hey, this is the mass we're going to reach, and this is like the crown jewel of advertising. And everybody, like, if you had a Super Bowl ad as an ad agency, that's like a win. That's a big win there for you. So I don't think we're going to see that in the next like 5 years or so, but I think it's like people will start questioning it soon. I mean, and start really trying to differentiate, is this going to be worth it? Is this not going to be worth it? And
you know where it gets interesting? When it's addressable TV at scale. So every TV is addressable. When basic cable, basic all television is addressable, it gets pretty interesting. You know, like that's obviously capable now, but if the Super Bowl, you know, when the cable channels get addressable, which is coming with, I think it's called ATSC 3.0 or something like that. It's coming to where every cable box is addressable. It gets a little wacky then with the buys potentially for how you can buy the spots to the more targeted. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. If you can make it direct response, suddenly you have every television marketer's dream.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the hardest part. It's like the John Wanamaker, like I'm wasting half my advertising, I just don't watch half. And like that's where you can finally start to bridge that gap. And like everybody loves digital advertising for that reason, because a lot of it's measurable and a lot of it's trackable. But again, to your point, the brand side, it's hard to quantify all the time. And if you can reach a large group, there's no perfect answer in that with this one, and I think it's kind of exciting to see it continue to evolve. The curveball for me, Saucony. Where the hell was that? Like Saucony is like a small, like almost niche shoe brand. Yeah. And suddenly they have a Super Bowl ad. I was like, did they get acquired by somebody?
Yeah.
And
right.
Just randomly throwing cash at it? Maybe. I don't know.
They get bought by a media company. Yeah.
But it was kind of funny to see a few of the curveballs in there too.
Yeah, there was. And then I think about like back to like, you know, Little Caesars announcing delivery, but it was early on. And then I just remembered it as we were talking about this commercials. I'm like, did that resonate? Yeah, because it was early on. I think they had one spot, you know, maybe two, but I think it was just one. And that was early on in the Super Bowl. And
I mean, not everybody's paid in, not everybody's glued to attention. I guess maybe they're. And when do you place an ad in the Super Bowl? Do you want it to be early or late? Like
that's what people toil over. The big brands are like, all right, you've got people, I can see them in the room with the whiteboard, and they are toiling over what time. They've got, you know, data scientists in the room going, there's exactly 3.4% less attention at the 30-second mark versus the 4-hour mark. I mean, I can see it.
Doug in Kentucky is on his fourth beer. He will not remember any of this.
Yeah, exactly. By then, you have the perfect memory and buzz going at the 2-hour and 10-minute mark. And we're gonna put the Bud Light commercial there.
It's gonna feel nostalgic and powerful. Yeah, it's a weird beast. I honestly, the television side of things was kind of before a lot of my time in marketing. So I don't know what that world was like beforehand. So it's a different beast.
It was another world. I have had feet on both sides of it, but another story for another day. So let's jump into the main event today.
So today we wanted to dive into owned versus rented land in terms of marketing, which seems like it's a ever evolving relevant topic, because we play with these things every day, and on any given platform, if the service is free, your eyeballs are the product. A little bit different on Amazon, but this is really reigns true for social, and now it's coming into the retail space on e-commerce with Amazon becoming the juggernaut that it really is.
Yeah.
But I guess I wanted to kind of dive in and talk. A lot of people that have been in marketing for a while now, everybody's had the experience on social where suddenly Facebook was introduced 2005 when people could start really getting on it at scale. It was, again, introduced 2004 with just a small niche group of college students. 2007 or so is when it really became a mass medium, and the algorithm started really kind of kicking in. EdgeRank updates really kind of threw marketers for a spin in 2008 and 9 when it was kind of the wild, wild west. But a lot of people that have lived through that, you kind of understand where it's going in a lot of ways, and you can kind of look through it. But thinking about kind of what's next for some of those platforms, and then kind of what it's like on Amazon also.
Yeah, and I get this. It's probably the most common question I get asked with e-commerce brands is how much is too much on Amazon, or if it's a new brand, do we go in the Amazon route? And it's not an easy one to answer. It's the elephant in the room doesn't sound big enough.
No, it's
the I don't know. It's the elephant in the closet. I don't know.
It's the
If you can imagine an elephant in your, not just in your room, but in your closet. It's like suffocating you. And
there's so much ambiguity here still now, and it's the elephant that's suffocating you. But is that elephant propping up your business at this point?
Yeah.
How much your business is going to be reliant on Amazon, and is it going to be something where you try and ramp up quickly on Amazon and then try and transition over to a Shopify and owning as much of that as possible? Or is it going to be something where you start with your own audience and then start to gradually let that Amazon drip start? And I mean, from the brand perspective, I can think of a few, like Anchor, a few brands who have really made it big on Amazon and really kind of ventured out from there. And for every other brand that's done well and kind of ventured out from there, I'm sorry, you're not coming to mind right now. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I have a hard time thinking of the brands that have been successful, getting 80% of their business on Amazon and then becoming, this hero on D2C,
this household name.
Yeah.
But you see these D2C unicorns popping up and doing really well, and then maybe adding part of their business to Amazon after that.
Yeah.
Like Everybody Loves Away or a Casper or any of those large businesses that are doing really well and kind of innovative things. I guess Casper's got some heat lately. Their valuation's a little bit high, but there's some really innovative things going on there, and they can really drive lifetime value of a customer because it's so, you have somebody who's purchasing, you understand what their behaviors are, and the more niche you are, the better you're going to be able to really foster a relationship with that brand.
Yeah, and I usually answer that question it's complicated. It really is almost how you're funded as a company and what your goals are. It's very specific to that. If you have a great product and a very limited budget and you don't have funding, or you're not trying to get funding, it's hard not to get on the Amazon drug to get some revenue coming in the door. It is certainly the easier way to faster sales amongst, whether it's D2C or on your own, with less budget. Because though you have to, Amazon's got their hand in every bucket now, from the ads to the product, percentage that they make on the revenue, to storage and warehousing. We'll get into some of those things, but it's still easier to get started there, to start growing scale in volume, because everyone's shopping there. And so if you have to have immediate fast revenue to fill the coffers, it's hard not to tell someone not to consider that as the realm. But if you've got the backing, the funding, or multiple partners to get the ad marketing content machine rolling for your D2C brand, then I like to say do as little as possible on Amazon.
I mean, I think the less you can get dependent on it, the better. It seems like it's almost like your margins are going to get cut. Your margins are going to get cut down gradually as time goes on. Like Amazon right now, today, is probably the most profitable Amazon is ever going to be for your business. And like, it's just going to go down from here because, I mean, ad inventory is going to stay the same, or maybe go up with a few more people on Amazon, but the prices are going to go up. And the costs and the level of competition in the market is consistently going up, with drop shippers from China jumping into the mix. You have people that want to fight you for fight you for a listing, and you're always playing a pricing war.
Yeah.
There's so many little small things that are so hard to manage at scale that it's really, I mean, unless you really want to invest the time, effort, and blood, sweat, and tears to really focus on it, it's a lot to handle for a business. Like, there are even pieces of individual businesses that are kind of almost side projects that are focused just directly on Amazon. Like, if you have a larger brand, some people that I know out of Northwest Arkansas and who work for California offices of large companies they basically work with individual lines of products that are made specifically for Amazon that are kind of like child brands of a larger CPG. So everybody's kind of starting to figure out how they want to dance with the devil, but there's no real perfect answer to it yet. Because do you want to give them a few of your products that you may not sell anywhere else? Do you want to make a line specifically for Amazon? Or do you want to just toss everything else on Amazon? And I think I was telling you about this before when, like, I need to get some new running shorts. I have a pair of running shorts, like these, like, kind of plain Jane running shorts I've used for years, from Roadrunner Sports. Again, I haven't shopped local for those, and I feel bad for it in some cases, but they're easy, they're fat, they're easy.
Why aren't you buying local, man?
They're easy, they're cheap, and I apologize in advance to my friends at Run In. They're a great place, but they fit well, they're easy, and they're cheap. Was ordering them off, like, was at Roadrunner Sports, and was basically had them in my cart ready to go. And then in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, we have an Amazon cart that we need to pull the trigger on. I, like, being the great shopper I am, I looked over and kicked the tires on there and ended up actually buying them from Amazon. As ashamed as I am to admit it, it was easier. And it's kind of crazy because it was about $3 more. We'll pay that in just ease of use because it's Prime. They're going to have it in 2 days. And it's already added on to my existing order. So it didn't necessarily come from the same place, but the fulfillment was just really easy and the process was smooth and simple. Didn't have to mess around with a credit card or anything. So you almost have to create that irrational connection between your brand and the end user to overcome the ease of use at this point. And do you want to be there and making it easy for them to kind of take a little bit more hit from your business, or do you want to, like, really kind of double down on that relationship?
Yeah.
And that's
exactly.
I'm still struggling with it a little bit myself, and again, like I said, a little bit ashamed, but
and that's why you have to build a brand. If you are going to fight the giant, you got to either have a highly differentiated product that only you sell and you have no competitors, or you've got to start with brand. And you think of the stories of Tom's Shoes or other brands that have a story and a purpose, and you use the social channels that are out there, and you start leveraging that to start to build your D2C name, and know that it's going to take time, and because my problem with Amazon, and look, we buy on Amazon, but my problem as consulting with a company or a brand is it's a race to the bottom. It's like if you race to the bottom, you'll win every time.
It's not a sustainable strategy, and it's just by its nature, it's not. I mean, they're going to take a higher and higher percentage of every transaction there consistently, and then you're fighting other people who are killing you on price already there too. So you're really shooting yourselves in the foot. And honestly, it's you're trying to take a product and make it a commodity suddenly. And when you play that game, everybody loses, like you said.
Yep.
But in the direct-to-consumer space, you can really kind of take yourself away from that commodity space and really kind of elevate your presence and elevate your brand. And I think that's where the long-term play is, and owning that relationship more so. And you still do have to battle Google with different inboxes, with the inbox, your promotions folder, and your newsletter folder. Like, you're always going to have something like that where it's trying to take a little bit of money back, and it's still rented land to some extent with a Gmail.
I think the biggest thing is it's no different than your investment portfolio. You need great distribution of wealth and assets. And it's the same thing with your sales, your distribution channels, your approaches. I think getting heavy in any one area makes you vulnerable. If you've got all your stocks, if you got all your money in high aggressive stocks, stock market crashes, you're in trouble.
Just put it in Bitcoin and ride it to the moon.
That wasn't a good idea. I've got a great story, a quick story on Bitcoin. I bought something somewhere not to be named. It might have been like some nootropic or something that was not illegal, by the way, but it was not whatever. But it took Bitcoin to buy it. This was like 10 years ago. And I had to buy, like, it was hard to buy Bitcoin in 1999 or 2009. It wasn't as readily available as it is now. Things people think, oh, it's been around forever. No, it hasn't. And so anyway, it was like 2009, 2010. I had to buy like 5 Bitcoins. At the time, they were like $200 a piece or $150. It's like $600, and the product I bought was only like $175. It was something weird the way I had it to be done. I had like 4 or 3.5 random Bitcoins sitting in. I just happened to have bought them from one of the reputable places that was still around. And you know when it spiked like a couple of years ago or whatever,
like $20,000 or so.
I had like $20,000 sitting there in Bitcoin or more. Like,
Dude,
I think it was the value of it was.
Each one was
and I sold it as soon as it hit like what the highest thing was. And I was like, you know, after taxes, still a nice like $15,000
I think
cash out.
I think you're one of like the 3 people in the country that actually made that work. I saw a lot of frenzy around that, and saw a lot of people. They kind of just they weren't as excited when it crashed the next month. That December 2018, I believe, was just crazy. Going through some technical.
I don't think that's actually happening on the audio line.
It's not happening on the
audio. It's
audio.
just what we hear.
Okay, I'm just gonna start. I'm just gonna keep talking. But yeah,
anyway. That was my Bitcoin, my random Bitcoin story today.
Diversifying your sales portfolio like you would your own investments, and it's kind of, I guess it's a good point. It's like looking at your risk profile as you would an investor. And are you 85 and want to retire soon, or are you 23 and are like, you don't even worry about health insurance. You're just ready to go because you're invincible.
Exactly.
So it's kind of looking at your individual business, assessing how you approach that risk and approach those issues. But yeah, I'm a believer in building on owned land as much as possible.
Yeah.
That's
and you know, some of the clients come to us and they have 70% of their business is on Amazon. And the first strategy, like number 1 in the deck, is how we start you owning this on your property as fast as possible.
Get them back over. And you see, and like, it just so many products on Amazon you purchase, they have the little cards like, hey, if there's a customer service issue, let us know. We want to be the first to know. And I swear, like, they're almost praying for it, because if they can have a customer service issue, they suddenly have a touch point with their brand.
Yep.
And it's almost a good thing, because maybe you can bring that person over and saying like, hey, we'll give you 10% less next time just to come purchase from us, as opposed to Amazon. And that 10% is going to be 5% more than they were given to Amazon last time. So
yeah,
and
if you're listening and you're just getting started, just so you understand, if you don't know, Amazon owns the customer. Period. You cannot contact them. You have no relationship with them. This is Amazon's customer that just happens to be doing you a favor by allowing you to pay them from 15 to 35% of the revenue to sell your product. Now, look, they've built the scale, they've built the monster, they've built the machine. I believe in capitalism. I don't have a problem per se, but it's just reality. So just be ready for it.
Yeah, and again, you're dancing with the devil, and like, it's like every marketer on Facebook in 2009, like, why are they taking away all my reach? I earn that reach. Those are my followers. They're not. When you don't own the platform, they own the platform, and those are not your community the same way it would be if you had an email list that you could reach out to, or if you had your own fulfillment. It's a lot hairier and a lot stickier to deal with on that end, but it's a more sustainable strategy in the long run, because Amazon's going to gradually take more and more of your business. And what if Amazon wants to take away if you have a replenishable product, they're snatching up those like crazy on Amazon. Amazon Basics is coming out with new products all the time.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of beat that? How do you kind of either outmaneuver that dragon, or how do you beat that dragon? And honestly, like, it's really difficult, because at scale, you're not going to be able to do it. Like, you're going to have to find a way to get off that wagon eventually, because you're just going to be eroding your business, eroding your brand, and eroding what long-term possibility could be there.
It's no different, and I had the LinkedIn post yesterday about branding over time versus sales in the short term, and activity, and it's proven over time. There's countless studies with billions of dollars that everyone listening can't necessarily see my hands up. I'm holding charts that building brand over time, the activities to do that, assuming you have a solid foundation of a brand and a great message. But with that assumption, over time, the speed and rate with that happen, which is slower, outpaces sales activation and lower funnel activity driving activity. And I would call Amazon for an e-commerce brand would fall into that. Hey, you can get some spikes early on, those first few months, those first half a year. You can totally get some rewards to the receptors in your revenue. And again, depending on your situation, that can be important. But building your brand over time is going to outpace what you can do on that rented land.
Yeah, so it's just that little serotonin hit every time you get a sale on Amazon. It's like a little bit, little hit. But you've got to eventually start to kind of do it on your own. Like it can be a little bit of training wheels in the front end where you can get a little bit of mojo going ideally, and then transition off of that as fast as you can. Because once you're riding a bike, hopefully you don't need the training wheels, and hopefully you don't need that little sidecar kind of following along next to you. But it's a fascinating space because how much of the world's transactions are going on Amazon, and how much of every e-commerce dollar are they getting a portion of?
I would be willing to place a bet. I'm going to look this data point up. I should have before the podcast. The valuation of a company or brand that has 70% of their sales direct to consumer versus a similar sized company with 70% of their sales on Amazon. What is the valuation difference between those two companies? Okay. I would love to know. I bet it's 10x.
No, it has to be because like if you're looking at it from an investor standpoint, there's so much volatility in Amazon where you don't have any, like they talk about like investor side, they talk about how do you build a moat? How do you build a moat around your business and your positioning? You have no moat. They dug up your moat, and your business is on top of the back of their truck. You're driving around in the back of the Amazon truck. If you have a moat around your business, you can kind of defend your position to some extent for hopefully ideally a consistent period of time. It's never going to be perfect, but if you can really do that, that's a differentiated position for you. But it's from the investor standpoint, I'd imagine even more than 10x because investment valuations are astronomical right now. So right. it's like 50x. So yeah, it's probably a good way to look at it. And it's probably a good way to position it for those groups out there thinking about, hey, do I need to be spending more time on Amazon or do I need to be spending more time building my brand? Because if you can position it in the way and kind of like everybody thinks Amazon's exciting and sexy because a lot of people are making a lot of money right now. It is kind of like that Bitcoin craze at one point where a lot of people are making a lot of cash. But if you look at it from a really shrewd lens, it may not be as exciting and sexy as it really seems right now because everybody's kind of jumping on that train.
Yeah, and that bandwagon gets heavy.
The bandwagon gets really heavy.
It gets real heavy and it turns over.
When billions and billions and I can't even imagine how many products are on Amazon right now.
And if you watch college football this season, when the Boomer Sooner wagon ran onto the field and turned over, luckily no one was hurt. I wouldn't bring this up. But that bandwagon flips. That's what you're like, and hopefully you're on the side where you're going to land on somebody next to you, as opposed to the side where somebody's going to land on you. Yeah, exactly. Can we say this? We talked about the titles, rented versus owned. I think we can chalk up Amazon as a frenemy.
Definitely.
It's hard to hate them completely, and I do not, by the way. But I'm also smart enough as a marketer and as a strategist for the brands that we work with to know that it is not the long-term solution for your brand.
You have to look at it with a grain of salt, and it's just like we need to put all of our ducks in the same basket. As we got to build a good TikTok audience. Yeah, it's put your ducks distribute your attention. Distribute your focus and don't put all your eggs in that one basket because that basket could change. Yeah. And that's Amazon's probably that group that will probably not be the last time we talk about Amazon.
No, I don't think it will.
I think it's kind of going to be continually the elephant in the room for a long period of time.
It's going to be a pretty heavy topic. We're both involved in the FedEx Ecommerce event coming up March 25th. Get more details. You can reach out to us on that event being put on by FedEx here in Greenville, South Carolina. So we're both part of that. I have a feeling it's going to be a pretty big topic. It's going to be one of my my line items in the speech that I'm working on, and I'm going to get in the pulpit a little bit there and fire and brimstone it on some Amazon.
I mean, and I'm sure you're going to be in very good company there with the FedEx group. I know they're not as pleased with Amazon right now after the holiday, after the kind of getting poo-pooed on by Amazon during the holidays. But it's a different beast, and we've got to kind of understand what it's doing, how it's impacting the economy. And like we talked about Super Bowl ads too earlier, like there was a reason they use AWS so many times in the Super Bowl. You heard AWS it's like half a dozen times or a dozen times. AWS is going to be its own company soon. Amazon's just getting bigger and bigger, and they're either going to be like shirking from antitrust legislation or trying to make AWS its own thing. So it's
fascinating.
We live in very interesting times.
It is. Robbie, enjoyed it as always.
Ryan, it's always a pleasure. We'll again look forward to doing this again soon.
I know. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed it, and I hope everyone has a great rest of the week, depending on when you listen to this. But please follow along at radical.company. You can link to all of our podcasts there. Please subscribe and like the podcast. Robbie and I would really appreciate it.
Give it some love.
Give us some love. And till next time, Robbie.
It's been real, guys. Thank you very much.
See ya.